win, but it was close going into the fourth. That's when they hit the turbo switch, and it was James Harden flipping that switch.
And you were kind of waiting for this moment for James Harden to take over a game with his scoring. And in the final 4:59, he scored 10 points in that fourth quarter. He was terrific, scoring in a lot of different ways, and he really got going right here with this dribble. This is when he kind of gets into his rhythm. Between his legs, a step-back jumper. Here's the thing, Bob. Right now, James Harden ranks second in the league with 49 clutch points. Before you say it, clutch points, that's defined as any game within 5 points with under 5 minutes to go when you score. He's got 49 this season, also 18 of 18 from the free throw line.
I'm going to let you define it. You know, you always get to be the
Josh
dictionary.
told me, our producer. He's been in my ear about it.
So here's the thing with Harden. We know he's clutch. He's great in the fourth. Yep. But he hasn't been that way yet for the Nets overall. Was it a recognition by him that Kevin Durant wasn't having that great a night that he said, maybe I need to do something here?
Yeah, and I think early on, when all three of them were playing together, I think he wants to be a good teammate. He looks at himself as a bit of the outsider. I'm just getting here, so I'm going to let the other guys do something. They needed this from James Harden the other night because that would have been a bad loss. Miami was a bit depleted. The Nets were not playing well. He really bailed them out, but this is the strength of this team where on any given night, when you have three superstars like that, that's why come playoff time, listen, they have to figure things out defensively, but offensively, they'll be fine. Kevin Durant struggled, and they win the game because they have James Harden scoring 10 points in the last 5 minutes.
All right, so tonight on Yes, Nets and Hawks, two very good teams winning ball games lately, but also their last 15 meetings. You take a look, the Nets have dominated, but they have split the season series so far. And in that last game, the Hawks won in pretty dominating fashion. The previous game 2 nights earlier, very high scoring. What do you kind of feel for this
one? The Nets ended 2020 by beating the Hawks. They began 2021 by losing to Atlanta. Atlanta's one of the top young teams in the league. Very exciting to watch. They're only going to get better. Now, they played last night, and they played a Clipper team that did not have Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, and the Clippers were pretty good against the Atlanta Hawks. But this will be a back-to-back, so a little bit of an advantage right now, even though it's a road game for the Brooklyn Nets.
Really quickly, the Nets are hitting the road. Does that matter at all? I know it's a different environment, but they were really good in Brooklyn.
Well, that's the thing. They've played more home games than road games, but these are the kind of road games now where you go to Atlanta, then you'll be in Oklahoma City, and then they finish off with Washington. Those are 3 winnable games. Would Steve Nash be okay with 2-1? Probably, but this is a chance now. The Nets are better than those 3 teams. They could come home with a winning 3 straight road games.
All right, so we're going to see what happens in Atlanta tonight coming up here on Yes. For all the latest now, let's bring in Michael Grady. And, Michael, it was James Harden taking over. What were they saying about the way the Nets' big 3 really picked it up in the fourth quarter of that game 2 nights ago?
Yeah, they absolutely did, Bob. And I just want to echo the point that Frank made. James, in this new situation, trying to be a good teammate. He's the new guy out there. He doesn't want to ruffle feathers or anything like that. And the Nets, they're okay with him being a facilitator. They don't want him to be passive, and that's the balance that we're seeing right now. In the last 2 games, he had just 2 shot attempts in the first half of both of those games against the Miami Heat, and that's not what the Nets want to see. They're okay with setting up the guys in the second unit up with good looks, but he has to be aggressive and has to be a weapon himself. That fourth quarter was just a glimpse of what he can bring to this team on the offensive end when he is aggressive, when he's looking for his own shot. We just saw an extra bounce in his step, almost like he was dancing out there, looking for his own shot, but also setting up his teammates. This has been a different situation, a different look for James Harden on this Brooklyn Nets team in terms of what he needs to do to be effective, and he talked about that after the game.
I was in a role for 8 years, you know, controlling the ball, dominating the ball. Now it's a different experience for me, but it's still great. It's still basketball at the end of the day, and I'm lucky to be able to do more than just one thing on the basketball court. So, it's fun. It's like I said before, it's a game within the game. You got to pick and choose when to be aggressive, when to get your shooters going, when to let KD and Kyrie get going. And once we get a rhythm in that flow and we kind of start to feel each other out more. It'll be a lot easier for us, and our team will have a lot more, flowing throughout the course of the game. Right now, we're trying to find it, and we show really good glimpses of it, but it'll be more consistent.
Why are the Nets considered by many to be the favorite in the Eastern Conference? We'll take a look at this. Fourth quarter scoring leaders for the big 3. Kyrie Irving, 9.1 points per fourth quarter, 8.6 for Kevin Durant. James Harden right behind him with 8.3, and then Joel Embiid, considered to be one of the favorites for MVP this season, averaging 7.4 points in the fourth quarter this season. Hawks head coach Lloyd Pierce was asked before the game, who is he most concerned about from the big three in this game tonight. Who is he most concerned about? He said Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant. That sums it up.
All right. But here's the thing. Last time around, didn't have to throw Harden into that mix. Now they do. So that's a challenge. How much does this game tonight, is it viewed differently from those last two with Harden in there?
Well, tonight is all about defense, figuring out a way to slow down the Atlanta Hawks. In the second meeting of the season against Atlanta, the Nets gave up 114 points in a loss. But that was considered an improvement because 2 days before, they gave up 141 against that Hawks team. So they're figuring out ways to slow them down. They have two excellent rollers on the offensive end. When you talk about a Clint Capella, you talk about a John Collins. Collins averaging 25 and 9 in those two games against the Brooklyn Nets. And then Clint Capella, James Harden knows very well how good he is in pick-and-roll situations. So the Nets are certainly going to have their hands full, and that's something I talked about earlier with Nets head coach Steve Nash.
They are a difficult matchup. They have a lot of shooters. They have length. They have, two great rollers. One in Capella with his length and size, and John Collins with his quickness and mobility and athleticism, and shooters all around. So, they are a tough matchup, and we're going to have our hands full. We need to figure out some things defensively, obviously. So tonight will be a great night to see how we can contain them and see if we can put up a good game against a team that is difficult for us to guard.
This is the second half of a back-to-back for the Atlanta Hawks. This is a team that wants to get out, run. We know what Trae Young can do out there. We know they're going to want to apply pressure on the Brooklyn Nets, but we'll see how their legs are looking on the second half of a back-to-back as they get their first look at the Nets with James Harden now in the mix. Looking forward to this matchup. Before I give it back to you, Bob, I just want to send my thoughts and prayers out to the family of Sekou Smith. We lost yesterday at the age of 48. He was a friend of mine, a colleague, a guy that I looked up to in this industry. He was a friend and a brother to so many different people across the board. And, again, it's a very difficult day, a lot of shock still given his passing. But I just want to give my heartfelt condolences out to the family and loved ones of one Sekou Smith, Bob.
Michael, thanks. Good to see you. Appreciate that remembrance. And the passing of Smith, by the way, has robbed the NBA of one of its most beloved voices. He was more than just a journalist. He was also a devoted husband and father who lived his life with the same passion he displayed when talking about the game he loved so much. He had spent the last 11 years covering the NBA for Turner Sports, working as a senior analyst for NBA.com and NBA TV. Previously, Smith covered the Pacers for the Indianapolis Star and worked for the Hawks beat for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Tributes have been pouring in from throughout the basketball world, showing just how many lives Smith impacted with his friendship and his warm personality. In a statement, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver expressed...
Rob Perez, Worldwide Wob, back here for FanDuel Sportsbook to bring you all the odds and opportunities for tonight's game. All systems go for Brooklyn. Coming off their wins against Miami, they head to Atlanta as 6-point road favorites. Odds makers also predict a scoring avalanche as the over-under is set at 239 total points. The Nets appear to be figuring out things slowly but surely, and we'll check in on that progress at State Farm Arena tonight.
Well, tonight's odds segment brings us back on the Brooklyn Nets pregame show presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. On Monday, Kevin Durant extended his streak of 20-point games to begin the season, hitting that number on the nose. After the win over Miami, he talked about how you never know who might come up big for Brooklyn.
We're going to have nights where we can't make baskets, and we got guys that can, like I said, create for each other. But we, our defense was able to be locked in on defense, which kept our energy going on the offensive side of the ball. And we generated good shots, regardless of missing or making. And whoever has the ball in their hands late in the games, we trust they're gonna make the right play. So it might be Kai next game, it might be me next game. I think that makes us, like I said before, it makes us unpredictable.
Durant wants it to be him because he got off to a slow start that last game, just 2 of his first 13. What were you seeing from him?
It's hard to score 20 points in the NBA, and when Kevin Durant does it, we consider it a bad game. But he did have 13 points. He also had 5 assists, so that's the great thing about Kevin Durant. Even when the shots are not falling, he finds a way to make plays. This is his bread and butter, though, when he puts the ball on the floor and he scores in the paint. Here he's playing a little two-man game with DeAndre Jordan. Again, the little dribble handoff. Nobody at the rim, so Kevin Durant goes in and dunks the ball. Michael talked about Joel Embiid, and here he is wearing 2 different sneakers.
Yet first half, he wasn't feeling it.
Those are the Seattle
shoes.
Supersonic ones. That's the team that he broke in with, and for some reason he's wearing Orlando Magic sneakers there. Maybe he was looking for a little bit of magic. But Michael had mentioned the idea that Joel Embiid will be in an MVP conversation. LeBron obviously is there, but you have to look at Kevin Durant, the way that he's played. He's just been so good. To me, what impresses me the most is on a night like that, the other night against Miami, where he doesn't have it going. He still made big plays, knocked down a big three-pointer in that fourth quarter, but he finds other ways to help your team win. And with Kevin Durant, he doesn't care about the MVP. He doesn't care about making the All-Star. If it happens, that's great. He's in it to win titles, so he's looking to get everyone involved. His leadership on the court has been outstanding thus far.
That attitude leads you to an MVP sometimes. Check out tonight's starting lineups. Brooklyn has Durant, Joe Harris, and DeAndre Jordan up front with Kyrie Irving and James Harden in the backcourt. Trae Young is running the point next to Kevin Huerter. Clint Capella is the center with DeAndre Hunter and John Collins at the forward spots. Capella is the NBA's leading rebounder, by the way, averaging close to 15 per game. So as you look at that list, we'll focus on these two teams. The All-Star game voting is coming up. It starts January 28th. Who are you thinking about from those?
And it looks like what the NBA and the Players Association is talking about is having an All-Star game, in fact, down in Atlanta. So some of the players in this game tonight will be there. Trae Young, remember, he got the fans' vote last year. And Kevin Durant will get the fans' vote as well. Now, whether James Harden or Kyrie Irving get that is another story. But I think Harden will make it. Kyrie, that'll be the big question. But there's a very good chance that the Nets could have 3 players in that All-Star game. And I think Trae Young will make it. And remember, Bob, it was a year ago yesterday where you and I were together. We were talking about the passing of Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant had been to a Brooklyn Nets game a month earlier at Barclays Center. And why was he there? Because his daughter loved watching Trae Young play. Wow. Trae Young is a fan favorite. Always take that into account. The fans get to vote for the starters, then it's the coaches who vote for the reserves.
He keeps moving up the list in the NBA, no doubt. Brooklyn will be trying to win its 3rd straight game in a matchup against Trae Young and a Hawks team that has won 4 of its last 5. We're going to scout Atlanta when we come back after another break on the pregame show presented by FanDuel Sportsbook.
Champion. Do you want to be a champion? I think I'm built to be a champion. This is insane.
For more information.
Heading into his 7th game with Brooklyn, the numbers for James Harden are pretty close to where they were while he was with Houston at the beginning of the season. He was still a member of the Rockets when the Nets and Hawks faced each other twice at the turn of the new year and combined for almost 500 points in those games. We continue on the pregame show presented by FanDuel Sportsbook with a look at the contrast in styles for these teams when it comes to offense. The Nets lead the NBA when it comes to points scored in isolations, but the Hawks rank near the bottom of the league. The Hawks still score, though, so break down the contrast for us and why both are so successful.
And Trae Young is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. It's just a little bit different where they will run a lot of pick and rolls with Trae Young. He's still going to get his shots, and obviously Clint Capella at the rim, and James Harden knows all about Clint Capella because really James Harden made Clint Capella. The two of them had a great little chemistry working in Houston where they were together. But Atlanta will be tough because they got a lot of guys that can score. And John Collins and Kevin Durant talked about it when they played here in early January, that the guy has terrific footwork. John Collins is an explosive player around the rim, grabs a lot of offensive rebounds, and when he puts it up, chances are he's dunking it on you.
All right, Trey Collins, you mentioned this coming off 38 against the Clippers last night, or Trae Young, excuse me. And in the meantime, he also had 51 combined in those 2 games against the Nets around the holidays.
Yeah, I really thought, if you look at this one possession here, he's got Kyrie going a million different ways, and that's not doing a good enough job defending him. Here's the thing, though, Bob. Trae Young is very good at drawing fouls. When he beats you off the dribble, a lot of times what he'll do, he'll stop, wait for you to bump into the back of him. He falls down. The referee will call the foul. There was a game last night against the Clippers. He took 11 free throws. Earlier this year against the Nets, he had 16 in that first meeting. He's second in the league at 10.2 free throws per game. Trae Young knows how to draw fouls. He knows how to go to the free throw line, and then he makes them when he's there.
By the way, at his size, though, you got to have some guts going inside against the big boys. He's not afraid to do that.
Well, that's what makes him such a terrific player. When you're that size, you need to be fearless, and he absolutely is. And guys try to go at him, and he goes right back at him. That's what you like about Trae Young.
And by the way, they score about 20% of their points on free throws. They're first in the league in going to the line, so we'll keep an eye on that tonight. In the meantime, let's talk about that January 1st game. It was wire-to-wire Hawks in that one, 2 nights after the Nets won that game. And the front court was able to get a lot of work done in this one.
Yeah, and this is late in the game with less than a minute to go. The Nets had pulled their starters, and the Hawks had kept their guys in, and this was a little bit rubbing it in their face, just a bit. Trae Young to John Collins. You could tell a lot of the Net players on the bench didn't appreciate that. We'll see if that carries over to this game, because chances are, you know how it works in every sport.
Right.
Baseball, hockey, basketball. Guys remember stuff like that.
It's so funny. They say, we could put it in the rearview mirror. That rearview mirror is a big mirror.
They remember it.
Yeah, all right. Kyrie Irving posted one of his 2 double-doubles in that January 1st game against the Hawks after one more break on the pregame show. Presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, we're going to spotlight Irving and storylines to keep in mind when play begins. Stay with us.
Countdown to spring training is on, but Yankees hot stove is still burning bright. After a flurry of offseason moves, our baseball insiders examine what other hot deals might be brewing in the Bronx.
This is going to be exciting to see how it turns out.
Catch an all-new Yankees hot stove tomorrow at 6:30, only on Yes.
With the Honda Civic, fun and sporty can also be practical and efficient.
And welcome back on the Brooklyn Nets pregame show presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Tonight's game in Atlanta is the opener of a 3-game road trip for Kyrie Irving and the Nets. They're also scheduled to visit the Thunder and the Wizards before they head home, as Frank told us earlier. Now, through 4 games in uniform along with James Harden, Irving's numbers are up a little on offense. His scoring and field goal shooting slightly higher than they were in the first 7 games he played before Harden was in the fold. Those increases offset slight dips in the rebounding and assist categories. Is that a sign that they're beginning to figure things out amongst the big 3?
Well, I also think it tells you a little bit about Kyrie Irving's personality. He had missed 2 weeks from the team. When he came back, he said, you know what, I'm out here playing. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm not going to play, listen, I'll get you involved. It's your turn. It's my turn. He was really aggressive in every game that he's played. The last time out against Miami, he was frustrated. I think he felt a lot of calls went against him. Then with the ball, he felt like he wasn't getting calls. Still made some key plays defensively down the stretch. But Kyrie is always going to be looking for his shot, and offense will never be the issue. And tonight he's got to be aggressive, because you want to make Trae Young work, but there will be times tonight where DeAndre Hunter will be guarding Kyrie. They put a bigger defender on him to make it tougher for him.
I wondered if that fourth quarter against Miami was a sign that the big 3 were starting to get each other a little more. Maybe it was just the night because Harden recognized that KD wasn't hitting
and you
shots.
showed the stat before about all the isolations, and I think that also speaks to your turn, my turn, now his turn. And I think the Nets were getting a little bit away from that over the last couple of games. They needed Harden to be a lot more aggressive with the ball, scoring as well as passing. He's been really unselfish. I think the fact that he was selfish in those final 5 minutes was beneficial. But Kyrie, he's got the right attitude. I'm out here playing with 2 great players. I will continue to play my game, and he's played really well offensively.
Hawks have some really good quality players as well. We've talked about Trae Young, obviously, but DeAndre Hunter is a guy who stepped up his game in his 2nd season. Clint Capella is a rebound machine, so there's some talent up front there that can do some blockage for the Hawks.
And that'll be an issue, because Bam Adebayo is a better offensive player than Clint Capella, but they both grab offensive rebounds. John Collins is the same way. Very athletic front court. And again, DeAndre Hunter. Now, this was before James Harden was on the team. He was defending Kyrie Irving a lot. Will they put DeAndre Hunter maybe on Harden? It's a long, athletic body. That's the thing about the Hawks. They have terrific young players, very athletic. And remember, off the bench, you have Rondo, and then you bring in Danilo Gallinari, who hasn't played well, but those players have experience.
By the way, a couple games ago, how about Capella with 10 blocks in a single game?
No, he is.
It's crazy.
He's really one of the more underrated players in the league. And, they love to say he's a rim runner. That's what he does. He's athletic. He'll run the court, and he hangs around the basket. He's not looking to be a guy that's 6'11", knocking down threes. He'll hang around the hoop. He gets lobs, rebounds. That's why he's really good.
They talked about Jeff Green in that last game and a few other games, just being a glue guy, filling that gap at the 5 spot. Can he have a big impact in this game?
And that was really a key. in the fourth quarter, because in these tight games, Steve Nash would prefer to go with offense, so they'll play small. And then Jeff Green is playing center. And when Jeff Green has to play center against a guy like Bam Adebayo, he's really got to lock in, and that's what he did in the last game. But what it does, when you have the ball, you really space the floor, because Jeff Green is going to stand outside the three-point line knocking down shots.
All right, final thing. Hawks are an athletic team. They're young, but they also are on the second half of a back-to-back. How do you think that might impact them?
You know what? I don't think it should. I think maybe young players will buy into excuses. They'll be up for this game. Everyone gets up to play the Nets because of those three guys.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks for joining us on the pregame show. Up next after a break, it's Ian Eagle, Sarah Kustok with the call, Michael Grady alongside. Enjoy it. Nets Hawks coming up next on Yes. Frank and I will see you at halftime.